Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. We had kind of a fun start to today, and it is, by the way, Thursday, 13th of February. It's kind of a bit of a rant day for Brian on the Daily Brief, but covered a whole bunch of stuff. Big picture, what the heck's going on with risk on, risk off. Looks to me like gold's trying to turn the corner back up here. Did notice bonds kind of wavering a little bit, and yen trying to get off its knees here after making new lows. Stocks don't really seem to be in big hurry to go anywhere here right at the moment. I did have an interesting report from Julian on Tuesday about options expiry, and there's about $1.6 billion on the line here on the most recent call option open interest. So we'll see whether Wall Street wants to have that stock called away from them or not. Bitcoin's coming off here a little bit. Is it risk on? Is it risk off? Always interesting debate. I'm feeling more and more like Tom Lee's seeking alpha and non-correlation Bitcoin as a good diversification tool. It sure seems to be acting very uniquely on its own. So I think there is a bit of correlation with gold. But also, too, I was kind of noticing the other day, it was interesting to me, that there's quite a bit of correlation between Bitcoin and the US dollar index right now. So jury's still out. Always a student of the market. Interesting also, too. Remember we were talking about buy your unleaded middle of February, sell it middle of May, blah, 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 blah. There's a W trying to form here on oil. Interesting. Which also, too, is a bit of a conflict because usually I find that gold and oil can't move in the same direction together. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, clearly oil's come off, gold's rallied up, so hopefully you see the correlation there. I've been, I think I told you I've actually gone and bought an oil stock here recently. It's not really doing anything right now. But I'm also mulling over the idea of maybe trend continuation trading the gold here. Spent some time through the daily brief looking at things like the gold and silver index. You can see a nice consolidation here on the XAU. Hasn't broken out yet though, so it's sort of humming and hawing. We took a look at Nugget. I think Nugget has an interesting setup potentially for trend continuation. So I'm going to be watching for that. And the biggest gold company in the world still, even though these guys want their title back, Barrick came out with earnings overnight, very strong, guided higher. And also raised their dividend. Their revenues were very strong. So, from a gold company perspective, I don't think they're complaining one bit. But for this to really be a bull, I'd like to see this break out through the top. So still we're kind of like, And like I said, I went through looking at that Nugget. I think Nugget's got an interesting little trade potential there. So I am watching the gold closely in here. I do have one big gold stock on, not really big, sort of intermediate size, and it's just been going sideways, and I think that's been the rhetoric that I've had lately of gold, is I still think we're basically stuck in this wide trading range, but we'll see how it goes. Usually through these daily brief recaps, I like to just stick the conversation to sort of pre-loaded charts. So, first and foremost, US dollar index. Interesting to see how it's coming up into sort of a level that we've talked about a lot recently. So it shouldn't surprise us that we're getting a bit of traffic up here. We've got a big juicy gap up top on the dollar index. We've got our little chaos levels that are flirting just above. And, of course, we're into original reload zones. And then also, too, hopefully you notice this was actually the big M that sort of started this whole correction phase off. So really, if this is really a top, and whoever put the top in here wants the top to stay, they'll come in here and defend this level here. The interesting thing about this, though, is that I'm not a fan of the euro, and the euro, of course, is like 35% of this index. So if I'm bearish of the euro, Makes it awfully tough not to be bullish of that US dollar index. And of course, this silly euro just keeps cascading lower. So, you've heard Brian talk lots about this. What I'm worried about now, though, is it looks to me like, number one, probably got to come back down to test these kind of trend lines. But can you see the big A, B, C, D floating out here? I think we got to come back down into these areas on the euro, which is pretty scary. And I think I've said this before. I mean, I would love to get in on this short. There was that awesome head and shoulders, which I kind of let slip by. Now I have to simply wait for counter trend rallies and some sort of failure, maybe against the bottom end of the value range here at 38.2s or something, and look for trend continuation moves lower there. So right now I can't do anything there. And really, it's just really a commentary on what the heck's going on with the US dollar index surging up against the highs here. I don't know whether it's really so much that US is so wonderful, it's just everybody's getting the hell out of Europe right now. And as you sort of see here, I wouldn't be surprised if this US dollar index actually has to work its way all the way up top here. Now, the interesting thing about this, right, is, I haven't been overly excited about gold, right? It's versus US dollar, it's just sort of sitting sideways. What's really interesting is if you go and price gold in euros or price gold in Japanese yen, I mean, gold's going through the roof. So really, it's just more a question of the U.S. dollar relative to gold is kind of, go, and all you gold bugs, probably around the world, gold in your local currency is probably doing pretty well. There's the good old stocks pressing back up to new highs. We talked a little bit about Chinese coronavirus. From what I understand, the scuttlebutt and sort of like the sentiment was they were going to take the stock market down here today because new cases were coming up, and it felt like they haven't got a control of the situation again, whatever. And through the day, they've just turned this market right around and bid it right back up to new highs. Very strong stock market. Fed is basically on the sidelines. Inflation numbers actually, ironically enough, have ticked up here. The inflation data this morning, which I think to a certain degree actually helps my sort of thesis of being short bonds. If inflation worries actually do start coming back, then the bonds do have to come off. And, if we actually are seeing a W come in on the crude oil down in here, that's another sort of inflationary pressure, which isn't going to help the bonds. But there's the funny gold, right? Just sort of bucking the trend. It's got a bit of an up bid, and now I think I told you over the past few sessions I was going to be looking for 1 kilo, 2 kilos, 3 kilos. Do I start actually getting enough anecdotal evidence to think that this is a base and we're setting up for the next leg higher, i.e. bought trend continuation trades? So it's still hanging in there, and I'm mulling over whether, bot level, take the trade, risk against these lows, and just live with the results. It's firming up, but I'm just not quite there ready to buy the Kool-Aid punch, if that's a drink from the punch bowl, anyway. Looking at the stock market in general, actually I've been doing a little bit of buying today. It's great. Brian shows you, woohoo, look at this one, take it off. Woo, look at that one, take it off. But, you can't touch those. It's after the fact. So I won't show you any ones that are moving up here today. I'll just show you maybe some stuff that I'm actually coming in on the buy side. So, and you should understand the logic behind this. There's a W in price. Market worked its way back down to reload zones. And this is TRST in Canada. The same symbol is down in the States, and I've been talking to you about this. I think it's CTST, Canada Trust. And what was interesting about this was there's some cheeky little price gaps down here. That this is the reason why I put my bid down in here, because I think these gaps need to be filled in. So I was happy to go pick up some stock here. I could very easily see them come down and play with these lows. We're very, very close, and I might just hop off this trade. But I'm a gambler. I'm more than happy to risk against these lows, and if it gets busted out, I'll just walk away. So you can actually see my risk window there. And frankly speaking, I don't know what's going to happen, but you know me. Buy against the lows and sell against the highs. So, that's a pot stock that I actually went and picked up a little stock here today. I might just, early next week, you might hear Brian say, oh, I just got blown out of my little pot stock buy. Totally possible. And I told you yesterday, this was a stock that I wanted to buy. And I was going to work some stink bids, and I just want to let you know, boom, you can see market gap lower. I got filled at 139 here, actually, which is right this level here. I got filled basically right at the bottom. So again, risking against the lows. I have no idea whether this is going to hold, but if these lows do hold and she can turn back up, is there any kind of room here for this to run up? Hopefully you understand the logic of what I'm doing here. And honestly, both of these, I have no idea whether these lows are going to hold. This will be fun to watch, and maybe place bets. What's the odds of both of these getting busted out? I would say, honestly, probably like a good 60-70% odds that they hold, but then that means 30-40% odds that these floors fail. So, just live with the results. I have no problem whatsoever. And of course, I don't, if you don't buy these, I'm not telling you to buy them. I'm just telling you what I'm doing with my money. Heading on over to the corn, really what I'm seeing here, which is, I think pretty much the message that I've been trying to convey to the public here over the past little while. 50% rules were traded to, so really shouldn't have surprised us whatsoever to see a bit of traffic coming in at this level. This is a very natural, normal level for a lot of traders to take profits, and you can see the back and forth here. Fun little tool that I've been working with recently, this chaos theory, trying to figure out where fractal reversals are actually projecting price to go. So we had this little conservative one that painted that target, and then this one here which paints that target, which kind of creates almost like a chaos window. And gee whiz, what a surprise, right around the 50% rule. What a shock. So in essence, what I'm seeing here is the bottom was put in, this was played out. If you think Elliott wave, how many waves higher are we? We're at the point now where the market kind of probably needs to recharge. Is this the top? No, I don't like calling tops. I'd rather see the market M out, or maybe even fractal or inside bar failure, something to tell me that the top is in. I don't see any evidence that the top is in just yet. I put tweets out yesterday, I guess, with regard to things like Ethereum, that as long as we still see the volume pouring in, right, and OBV surging higher, and as long as we see momentum still making higher highs, and there's no signs of divergence, we can stay embedded and overbought. That's actually a sign of a very strong trend. So as long as we just don't see any divergences developing here in our momentum, I think we can go further. But kind of like the same thing as Bitcoin, you can see we came up into a chaos level here. You can see this, in this case, we hit Mountain Man right square across the nose, bang. And that Mountain Man guys, they don't think, they just trade. Hit that 61.8, live with the results. So it shouldn't surprise us that on Bitcoin and on things like Ethereum we're running into some traffic. At the same time too, considering our conversations about auctions on the 18th, this being a long weekend coming up, I'm not really quite ready to say this is it, it's done, straight down from here. That's is Brian ever going to say that? And then looking at this kind of image, I don't have enough sort of anecdotal evidence internally to suggest that price is actually weaker than what price is leading you to believe. So, I'm still thinking, some sort of blow off top. I wouldn't even be surprised if we actually have to reach up into this Mountain Man level for that auction, and that's 11,000. So I don't know where the top is in here, but my hunch is over the next sort of 3 or 4 days, we will see some sort of top come in here. And I guess, what worries me is that it's this kind of market state. Like you can actually see if lower time frame players, we actually had pretty bullish objectives hit. And what's really interesting, our conversations of late about RSI and, hunting M's, we see we do have a big M that come in. We might get another M that goes through the 50 line. That'll be a sell signal. So bots have hit their trend continuation trades, have hit their upside objectives. And interesting, as the market was making higher highs here, this was like total divergence. Very dangerous. Something's not right here. So our general rule at TRI is if you're a bull, you just got to wait for this divergence to play itself out. and then we can start going back to the bull side. What I thought was really interesting about this, if I'm not mistaken, and this will just fry your brains, was I think that the market actually set this 10,546 level up off of this price action down in here. And our crazy chaos theory kind of thinking, suppose we ought to go off the low there, suggested that this fractal that formed down in here, it was fully expressed when we got up into this level, and I found that fascinating. They just couldn't finish this thing until they hit that level, and then big dump. And at the end of these moves, this is often what the price action looks like. The kids are getting ripped apart right, left, and center. As I sort of showed you, the sort of conservative traders, they're actually exiting and taking profits, and you just got to let this thing settle down. And that's basically the message that I've been giving to the community here today, is really, I might just, let's go play the altcoins through the weekend. Let's have some fun. I think you got to let Bitcoin here settle down. I think you could see spikes up and down here, easily $1,000 either side. This trade, you should have sold some at your target, maybe move stop to scratch, and just let it breathe, right? There's nothing really, in my opinion, to be done here. And as I said, a lot of trader setups, this was the profit objective. You should be getting out now, not in. If you did want something to play with in the space through the weekend, again, don't chase, don't chase, don't chase. You've heard that a million times from Brian. I can't really endorse going in and buying a name like this that's gone up. This is the poop indexes. But Kevin pointed out to me, now, this is Trex, so Trex has its issues. But if you are in the shopping market, to consider ideas, this guy's just sitting in the wheelhouse. I'm not going to comment on the fundamentals. All I'm just going to simply say, maybe go do some fundamental research. If you like the idea, you can see technically this thing's setting itself up. So there's something for you to chew on. No comment about the FA, just simply what do we do at TRI? We try and hunt them W's, and I think Kevin's onto something here. And if this idea does work, does it have any room to move up here? No guarantees. Just telling you what we're doing with our money. And at the very least, it's something for you to consider. All right, why don't we leave it at that? Have yourselves a great rest of your day. All the best, and bye for now.